Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Oneness Junkie podcast, hosted by me, Lydia Smith, a self-proclaimed Oneness Junkie. Oneness Junkie is a place to be inspired, encouraged, and supported. Learn from the individuals who are working to make the world a better place. Let's meet today's guest. Hi, everybody. It's Lydia. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to our next guest. His name is Kiley Albrecht. Hi, Kiley.
Hey, Lydia. How are you?
Good. I'm down here in South Texas, and you're in sunny California, right?
Sunny, freezing, 51 degree. Feel free to make fun of me for calling that freezing, California.
I noticed you had a sweater on.
You know what? I have a sweater. I have a space heater. I have a hot tea.
That's funny. It's really warm here. And I was just thinking, it's so hard to get excited about the New Year's Eve with like 80-degree weather. So it's so weird. Isn't that unusual for it to be snowing in California?
Yeah. I mean, it's snowing in the mountains, but here it's not actually freezing. It's 50 degrees.
I gotcha.
It's shorts weather for people who are used to the cold.
You're just cold natured, right? You just like to be cozy. Yeah. I like to be cozy too. All right. So I want to tell the audience how you came to be on my show today. And then I want to have you introduce yourself. So let me first start off by sharing that I just met Kiley, I would say less than a month ago, and we're both in a group on Facebook that focuses on positivity and creating the life of your dreams and self-improvement. And Kiley wrote a post that really drew me in and attracted me to what he was talking about, because it's a conversation on my mind right now. And part of this group that we're in believes that when you're a like vibration of something else, you attract it to you. So it's so amazing, because I was having this dialogue and with my friends and my people that I am talking with about my life. And all of a sudden, Kiley writes this post that is very similar. So he was talking about just the male and female sides of each and every one of us, and that we all have female energy and we all have masculine energy. And I'm in that conversation. How much masculine do I have? How much feminine? And really my focus is to get it balanced right now. So we're going to talk about that today. But before we dive into that fun conversation, I'm going to ask Kiley if he will take us back to his beginnings. And we would like to know more about Kiley to understand who he is today and the work that he's doing. What has led him up to the point that he's at today? So I've asked him to go all the way back and to share as much as he's comfortable with.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to go all the way back to one of the most important years of my life, which was when I was 9 years old. And since then, I've had just a twisty, turny journey that I never really planned out, but I kind of just did the best I could in each moment and just went on the path that felt right at the moment. So I wasn't one of those people who always knew what I wanted to do, and I didn't follow any sort of straight path. But back when I was 9, I was a tiny little, like, shortest kid in the class, skinny little twerp. And I was pretty shy. And that was the year that I think I really started to notice what other people thought of me, and that we were all kind of looking at each other and comparing ourselves to each other. So it was definitely the first year I remember comparison. And one comment stands out to me, because during recess and during lunch, I always used to go and play on the monkey bars with all the girls. And then the guys would go play dodgeball or something, or football. And I remember one day a boy coming up to me and saying, why do you play with, like, why do you hang out with all the girls? And he said it in such a way that I knew, like, oh, okay, maybe something's wrong with that. Maybe something's wrong with me. Why do I do that? And it's like that sparked my awareness. So then I could see like the literal, like physical divide, and then also the more figurative divide, where I saw on the other side of the playground all the guys being all aggressive, throwing their dodgeball, me feeling like actually having a fear of like being hit by a ball
getting hurt
because I was so small and like scared of everything. And then I was over in like my little corner, you know, with the jump rope and the monkey bars. But that was like, it was just such an important time because it was a time that I felt like, oh, like this is wrong. And so I guess this is shameful and I need to maybe hide it so that people don't notice and they don't call me out. And so I went on, when I got to fifth grade, I feel like I really started looking around even more because I changed schools. So I was like, okay, here's my chance. I hung out with only other boys. I didn't even realize how much I was doing it at the time. But when I look back, like I was buying the shoes that they were wearing. I was buying the music that they were listening to. I didn't even like the shoes and I didn't even like the music, but I was just blindly following what everyone else did because I just wanted to fit in. And I know a lot of people have that experience. And I think it was extra hard because I felt within me, I'm hanging out with people who I don't fit in with on the surface, but there's also something deeper internally that I'm really not fitting in with. And that was the feminine energy that I always had. But I was able to pull it off and I felt like, okay, like I'm fitting in. But as I kept getting older and older, making my way toward high school, you know, people go through puberty and girls start liking boys and vice versa. And the genders really started to separate more. Like it became more obvious that girls hang out with girls and guys hang out with guys, and you know, boys are masculine, girls start wearing makeup and start worrying about their clothes and
looking more feminine, right?
looking even more feminine.
There's a bigger distinction.
There is. I mean, like physically, literally, when you go through puberty, like there's distinctions that are made very obvious.
Oh, right. Like girls start getting boobs.
Right.
That's a big distinction.
Yeah. And then like guys' voices start getting deeper, like the separation gets more clear. And so people notice. And that's about the time when people started like, oh, this person's dating this person. And I mean, it was always girls dating boys. So I got all the messages. I'm like, okay, I see how the world works. But when I got to high school, it was like, it got even more extreme. And maybe this is especially because of the type of high school that I went to. But the friends that I had, a lot of them joined the football team or the baseball team. I didn't do sports. I just was never into it. And so they hung out with the other athletes. The girls got very cliquey. And I remember specific instances of like girls that I was friends with just kind of abruptly not talking to me anymore and not including me anymore. And I didn't know why at the time. But looking back, I think that has to be what it was, is I guarantee
they sensed something was different.
And I think they probably got comments from oh, why are you hanging out with Kiley? Like, he's a boy. Do you like him? Do you have a crush on him? Or why are you hanging out with him? And so we all learned to kind of, again, I know other people had different experiences, but in my high school where it was like football players and cheerleaders, clicky and that whole classic thing, that was the hardest part because I kind of lost my friends and I looked around and there was nobody to identify with. I couldn't hang out with the girls because I wasn't one, couldn't hang out with the guys because I wasn't one. And so I felt like I didn't belong on like a deeper level, and I didn't have much of a social life, and that felt very lonely and shameful too, you know, in high school when everyone is caught up in being liked and fitting in and being popular, to feel like, oh, wow, like I just don't fit in at all and barely have friends. So that was like another really impactful part of my life. And so as I moved beyond that and went to college, things open up a bit more. People are a bit more open-minded. You can have your more freedom and find your people. But so that was helpful a little bit, but it was almost like so many things had already been solidified in my mind in terms of what was right and what was wrong, what was shameful, what was unacceptable. I had already downloaded a bunch of beliefs. And so at that point, didn't really think I had certain options. Like when I went to go figure out my major, I distinctly remember thinking, oh, I can't do this major because it's in the art field. I can't be an artist. Like, that's not right. That's too feminine. Like, I learned to go the other direction, like avoid femininity. You might be rejected and disapproved of.
Right.
And
When you were
so,
being pulled that way, though, like your heart was drawing you in those instances.
yeah, so it's conflicting. And so I learned to be like, oh, I like this, but no, I'm not allowed to like this. So that taught me to reject myself, hide parts of myself, and therefore I actually couldn't ever get to know myself. Because if parts are hidden, I can't see them. No one else can see them. So I don't know me. I can't let other people really know me. I mean, that's also very isolating. And so I kept doing the best I could, and it wasn't terrible. It felt like, luckily, I felt it was okay enough. But I don't think I realized the background noise of the anxiety and the shame and the hiding and trying to make sure that the exterior that I put forth was going to be acceptable. That takes a toll.
Yeah.
And
But then
so,
you were talking about like people have behavioral issues and then they think like, oh, they're just something's wrong with them, but they're not really looking at the deeper message too, right?
yeah. So to actually kind of rewind this, all like when I was 9, I was also had some behavioral issues, anxiety, and just kind of acting out and feeling uncomfortable in my skin. And then I also developed Crohn's disease, which is an inflammation of the intestine. It's an autoimmune. And so, I mean, I believe that was when your body is stressed, it does tend to manifest eventually as a physical illness or ailment. And so since I was 9, I had this anxiety and this Crohn's, and it just kept getting worse. And I actually remember at 9 years old trying to navigate it and even telling my parents, I think I might be gay, or I think I am gay, because that's all I knew at the time, because I felt attractions toward men. Yeah, like even at 9 years old, I felt very certain. I actually had remember a folder, like the folders that you would take to school to
Yeah.
keep your papers in? I think it was a Saved by the Bell folder, and it had Zach Morris and like some of the other ones on the front. And I
Uh-huh.
think he was shirtless.
Yeah.
And so I remember telling my parents, like, because they asked me, how do you know? Like, why do you think that you're gay? And I said, well, because I like this picture. Like, I don't know. I didn't know about sex, but I felt
Right. You were
attracted
just
to it.
like, you were attracted to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
These are indicators. They're indicators for the child, and they should be the indicators for the parents, right?
yeah, because it really, I mean, I haven't met someone who is, of a sexual or gender minority, so gay or bisexual or transgender. Pretty much everyone who I've talked to, they had a sense that this was true about them since a young age. It's
Right.
usually as young as 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, 8, 9, but it really starts in those younger years. And I think people who didn't notice it as much, it was because they were clearly told by their families, by religions, by society, that that's not okay and that that's not an option. So it's buried.
Yeah. When you were talking about that, the term that came to mind was, how you hear this term grooming? They're getting groomed for something. It feels like I'm making this up. I've never heard this word, but cultural grooming,
Oh
right?
yeah,
It's
it's
like,
like if anybody's seen the Truman Show with Jim Carrey, where he's like in a reality show
Uh-huh.
and everyone's in on it, and his whole life is like a TV show set. I mean, it's kind of like that. Like everyone is in on it. Like your teachers, the TV shows, your parents, your
Right, that you're
friends, like
supposed to be
everybody telling
male, that you're,
you,
yeah.
yeah, these are the toys that you're supposed to play with. This is how your hair is supposed to be cut. These are the clothes and the
You're
colors you're
supposed
allowed
to
to
play
wear.
sports.
Yeah, these are the sports that you're playing. Oh, the homecoming dance is coming. Like, what girl are you going to ask? Like everyone's in on it. But imagine if it were flipped. Like, imagine if you grew up and you're straight or whatever, however you identify, but imagine that everybody was trying to convince you to be with the gender that you didn't want to be with.
Exactly.
That's nuts.
I mean, I
it's
can't
traumatizing.
imagine like flipping the table and just, I'm a straight heterosexual woman. And to imagine that somebody wanted me to be lesbian and that I'm supposed to like girls and,
Yeah,
like
are
I
you gonna
can't
hold her
even
hand? Are you gonna kiss
imagine.
her? Like, what are you gonna
I
ask
can't
her out?
imagine that that would even, yeah, it's just so ridiculous. So part of our conversation, like when we finish talking about what brought you to where you're at, is going to include, because Oneness Junkie is about freedom and compassion and creating more compassion in the world. And I think that when we allow people to be free to be who they are authentically, that creates a more compassionate world, right? So that's what we're going to talk
Yeah.
about, later on. So you brought us up to college.
Anyways,
So
yeah. So college. So I still was trying to figure out. I didn't know who I was because I didn't think that certain things were options. And so I continued on, and it wasn't until grad school when I was doing a nutrition biochemistry research master's degree that I realized what I had been doing and that I hadn't even been able to be honest with myself because I chose to do a degree that was like lab science. So scientific research, lab coat, science lab, chemistry lab. I knew I didn't like that. But I was like, well, maybe I've just never done actual research. Maybe I'm just not used to it. You know, all the lies that we tell ourselves to try to convince
maybe
ourselves.
I'll learn to like it.
But why am I doing lab science? Because that was the one that was more masculine. I mean, at our school, we had about 200 people. Probably like 185 of them were female. And then most of the guys were in the lab science program. Like it was very gendered. So I did that. And then
Wait, I just want to make a silly point. You know how like a lab coat can kind of look like a shirt dress. So all these men, subconsciously wanted to go into a profession where they could actually wear like
they
a
all
shirt
wanted to
dress,
wear like shirt
like a
dresses. And I should have
dress.
gotten like a good, like a cute belt and I could have wrapped it
Exactly,
around.
like dress it up and
I could have
style it.
accessorized. Yeah.
With the big chunky belt,
Exactly.
on the lab coat, Actually, it's very genderless, isn't it? Because it's a coat. So like women wear coats, and that's like a one article of clothing where it kind of melds us together. Like a coat doesn't necessarily define,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. I mean, so I wonder, I bet a
we can
lot of
make
the,
something up about that.
no, it's true. A lot of the females that are in the science profession probably do feel that like pressure to be more masculine or feeling like they're not seen as their authentic feminine self because they're in a quote unquote masculine role.
Well, isn't it interesting that the lab coat, like there's not one made that looks feminine, right? And then one that you wear that's masculine. The lab coat is the equalizer of that profession.
Yeah.
Everybody looks the same in the same lab coat. You don't,
Yeah.
it's genderless, right? That's kind of a
That's
neat
a really
concept.
interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back
Yeah.
to your lab
So
coat.
despite my outfit, which was a very cute shirt dress, I really, really didn't like working in the lab. And so it was just something that I had to
Was it like
then,
pathology or like what kind of lab work were you doing? Like with rats or what?
rats, I think was on the fourth floor. And I did not do that because I would want to take them all home as pets. Because I used to have
You had
rat
more
pets.
compassion for them.
Oh yeah, I couldn't put them in the gas chamber.
Oh my
That'd be
gosh,
terrible.
poor
That's how they do
thing.
it.
Oh
They
my
sacrifice
God.
them Yeah. But I was
You were in the wrong
doing,
profession.
I was in the wrong profession. No, I was doing nutrition research. So we were studying antioxidants, basically antioxidants in cranberries.
Oh,
And I didn't get to play with rats and mice, but I did get to play with military guy poop
ew. Why
because we didn't.
why military guy poop? They
I
ship
don't
it
know.
from Afghanistan or something?
They had a partnership with like the military base, and so the military personnel supplied stool samples so that we could
Gross.
look at the metabolism of the microbiota, like the microbiome on
Right, the
the cranberry.
microbiome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's good
So that
information
was,
that you have. So that's good.
yeah, no, they were discovering good things, but it's just, you can just feel what's for you and what's not for you. And being in a lab and being stressed with all this equipment and not being able to interact with people was not. I mean, I'm like an interactor. I love people, and I'd go in and say, hey guys, like happy Valentine's Day. And then
It's
my
like cricket.
supervisor,
It's like cricket
like
stripping.
my supervisor actually looks at me and says, I don't celebrate that. And I'm like, okay. And then I remember another time, hey, like we're all just petting. We were just doing like just busy work, like manual. We didn't have to think about it much. You want to just turn on the radio a little bit? And then more crickets and more, actually I'd rather just work in silence. So I was like, okay. It just wasn't my style. And I mean,
You're
that's
sitting there
such an
going,
important
why didn't
concept.
I get that art degree?
Seriously, or at least like I would have done nutrition communications. But no, like it was
Nutrition
such a good
marketing.
lesson though. Exactly. Something.
Yeah.
Interact with
Okay.
people.
Let's tell us the lesson. That's great to hear.
Yeah, no, the lesson is, I mean, one, to have, even if it's uncomfortable, to have that honesty and integrity with oneself, and also to be okay that certain things are for us and certain things are just not our cup of tea. And to really give ourselves permission to do what lights us up and to be okay if something doesn't work for us, even if we thought it was going to, or even if we thought, our parents wanted us to do something, or we thought it was supposed to work. But like to get honest and say, I don't like lab work. And I felt the same way for the longest time, feeling shameful that I didn't like sports, because like you had to like sports as a guy to be normal and fit in. But to finally be able to be honest and say, you know what, I actually don't enjoy sports. And maybe that's not a popular opinion, but it's true. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's just my preference. I would rather watch gymnastics. The lesson is for everyone. If I could impart whatever authority I have to give everybody permission, but really encourage you to give yourself permission to like what you want to like. There is nothing wrong with that. You're not weird. You're normal. But really, what is weird and what is normal? So you are weird and you're not normal, or you are both. Doesn't matter.
Weird,
you're you,
and
that's the best thing in the world. Yeah, exactly.
How about you're weird and that's normal?
You're weird and that's normal. Exactly.
Yeah. Everybody's weird to the other person.
Yeah.
Because it's
Be
not
weird.
the individual. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, that sounds like a great t-shirt. Be weird.
Just do it. Seriously, because if you're not weird, you're not going to attract the other weirdos that you actually are going to love hanging out with, and they're going to love being with you too.
You know what? Like a lot of people are more interesting when they're, a little different than you, right? I mean, who really wants to just like you hang out with yourself all the time? Like I need a little bit of diversity.
Yeah. That reminds me, one time I was teaching a class because I taught some high school classes for a bit. And in the middle of me teaching, standing there in front of the class, a student says, did you know that, or raises her hand. And I said, oh yeah. And she goes, you're weird. Did you know that you're weird? And I just looked and I was like, yeah, I know I'm weird. I'm like, I love it. I'm like, hopefully you're weird too.
Be weird with me.
And then some other students were like, yeah, I'm weird too. So, I mean, it's really just all, like I said, back from being in fourth grade and comparing, it's just all comparisons. If I say, oh, hey, I'm weird and I love it, and someone else says, oh yeah, me too, then there's going to be other people that are
then
like,
it's cool to be weird.
Great. That's right? Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to be weird. Of course it's okay.
It's cool to be weird. So I wanted to just mention
Yeah.
one thing about what you were saying, and then we'll move on to the conversation of masculine and feminine energies.
Yeah.
And
Oh, if
that
I could
is,
really quick though, just so it doesn't get too like, so I have to keep coming back to my long story, is that the point is I didn't like lab science and I finally got honest with myself. And that's how I am where I am today, as a life coach, as a mindset coach, interacting with people and encouraging them to be themselves and to be weird.
That's awesome. I actually believe that we are brought into this earthly experience to evolve. Our soul's goal is to evolve and become more and more enlightened. And so sometimes it's those experiences that are the experiences that help us to be all that we were created to be. Like if you didn't go through all that, how could you be who you are today? So it's really great when you can get to the place, and I know you're there, where you can look back on your life and say, thank you. Thank you, teachers. Thank you, people. Thank you, everyone who were, and I think everyone is our teacher along the way. You know, the little boy that rejected you, or the little girl that said the wrong thing, or the, teacher that, said you didn't know how to jump rope right, or whatever, like whatever your triggers were growing up, your family, your parents, your siblings, your friends, your lovers, all those little lessons along the way build you to who you are today. And when you get to the point where you can embrace that and say, thank you, that's like the most freedom feeling you can have. Right.
Right.
So
there's always a gift or something to learn. Everything and everyone really is our teachers. And I know that in the moment, it might not feel that way. If you're going through a really hard time, I could imagine people rolling their eyes and saying, oh yeah, like this is so great. And I'm so thankful for this, because in the moment it feels very painful and it's very, very difficult. But if you can know in the back of your mind, in your subconscious, that every experience is valuable, and just don't worry, because this is supposed to happen. It's helping you get to where you need to be.
Yeah. I love that saying, this too shall pass. And if you can just hang on for the moment and let the season, if you will, pass, there will be a new season. And the other thing I like to say is that the only thing constant in the world is change. So change is coming. So
because sometimes it feels like it's not going to pass.
Yeah, it's
in that moment, but it will.
But what's great about the group that we're in is that we believe that our mental conversation helps to support, through the law of attraction, the vibrational match. If you're sitting there thinking about your life being different, hang in there, keep thinking, keep creating, keep manifesting, so that you get up to speed with that vibrational match that you're waiting for to happen. Yes, all of that is good. So let's jump into real quick, because I know we've had so much fun talking and I feel like we're just got so much to say. So let's talk about the idea of the masculine and the feminine energies as it relates to, just pertains to generalities. Let's talk about societal conversations, acceptance, rejection, people who are afraid to own their masculine and feminine. And I'm going to kick this off and just say that I saw that Kinsey report film back in, I think it was 2004 when it came out. I saw it back then. I think it was even earlier, the film. Date release 2004, November 12th. I saw it right when it came out. We went to this, me and my friends, I was in my 30s. I was about in 04. I think I was like 30, 32 or something. And I wasn't thinking about the conversation of how much masculinity I had. I was thinking of it as it relates to like male femininity and male masculinity. Like I wasn't connecting myself to the film in 2004 when I was in my 30s. Fast forward, to some healing work that I've been working on about maybe why I've made some decisions that I have in my life, or how I'm not making some decisions that I think that I want to be making, and what's blocking me from that. And boom, what comes up is an imbalance in my masculine and my feminine energy that causes me to not have maybe what I think I want. Or like I was telling you in a previous conversation, that if I have more masculine energy when I'm a heterosexual female, I'm not going to attract like the really masculine male that I'm looking for. I'm actually attracting someone who's like a vibrational balance to me. And so the guys that are drawn into my life typically have more feminine energy than I'm interested in partnering with long term. Like it's okay to date them or hang out with them, but that's not what I'm looking for my mate, for my long term mate. And so as I'm imbalanced, I'm continually attracting the wrong person to me and wondering why I can't attract what I want, And so that's why it's now in 2021, what is this, like almost, what is that, 20 years? That's almost a 20-year difference. It's like 18-year difference that I'm looking at that. And I wasn't looking at it when I was 30, 2 or whatever age I was.
I'm curious to ask, when you being in your masculine energy, do you feel like you're being yourself? Do you feel like you're being authentic?
Yeah, but what's interesting is recently, because everybody's been doing a lot of this Zoom and taping Zoom. And with my podcast, I create the audios through taping with Zoom. It's interesting because when I can look at myself back and see how I project out, some of the things I say, like I've even had a hard time looking at how maybe passionate I might talk, or how affirmative I'm feeling when I'm saying something, like it's strong, and like, I think I'm comfortable when I'm doing it because it's just me. It's just my way of being. But something groomed me. I'm the youngest of 4 girls. So something groomed me to be the person that I am. And I do know I grew up with some, power issues, imbalances in my family system. So that could have created me to have a stronger disposition to keep my power strong. Maybe that was my role model, like the one who's more powerful gets, what they want or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I haven't dug that deep, but that's an interesting question for me to ask myself. But in regards to I'm just using myself an example. I don't want to make this about me, but like, I'm just using that as an example of a heterosexual female who's interested in attracting a heterosexual partner, can have an imbalance of masculine and feminine energy, but I don't get chastised for it. Like it's acceptable on my side of the fence, so where I want to go with the conversation is, why is that not equal when it happens in another direction? And how do we create a more compassionate conversation and a more accepting conversation when we see an imbalance, or if someone's choosing to express themselves as more feminine or masculine and it doesn't match their physical appearance, then why can't we just be compassionate about that? It's like, I do want to say this, and then I'm going to not talk. I'm going to let you talk, but because I had this thought earlier, which is, if I don't know lab, code lab work, I'm just going to use that because we were talking about it. If I don't understand genetics, I'm not going to really have a strong opinion about genetics because I haven't studied it. I'm not an expert. I'm not going to say you're wrong because I don't know enough about genetics to have an opinion. So when it comes to like a transgender or a, bisexual person or a person that homosexual. I mean, only thing that I understand for myself is heterosexuality. So that's really, I feel like the only thing I really can have a educated opinion about, and that's my opinion, and who cares? Nobody cares, right? So like, if we can just allow people to be who they are, express themselves how they are, and love them all, no matter what, the world would be such a more comfortable place to live in, wouldn't it be?
I think you said something really important, that you only have your own experience of being you. And if you identify as a heterosexual woman, then that's what you know. And so everyone has their own different experience. And the only experience we can really understand is our own. And so to allow other people to have their experience and to give them a little bit of grace and benefit of the doubt, that, you know, even if someone's like, what do you mean you're transgender? Why are you just choosing your own gender? It's okay if we don't understand that, because I only understand my experience. And just so that everybody knows, because I know I mentioned before about, am I gay? Well, I don't know. I don't really like to use words because we don't really have enough of them. And so they're a bit limiting. But I'm me, and I am physically attracted to men. I don't really, if I had to pick a gender, I would identify more with gender. So I can speak from a quote unquote transgender perspective, but everyone's different. So is my version of transgender going to be the same as someone else's? Of course not. I mean, I present myself to the world looking like a more typical male, simply because so far that's the most comfortable thing that I've found. The idea for myself of actually medically transitioning isn't appealing to me for various reasons, but it doesn't mean that I don't identify as a female or that I don't feel female. But then again, what is female? Like, and that comes back to what you're saying, is that we all have our very own unique combination of femininity and masculinity, and our own combination of our sexuality and our sexual interests and our gender. And it's going to be different a little bit for everyone. What is female or what is feminine? Okay, we can make, like, it's almost like in a graph. If you make a bell normal curve, the majority of females might share certain characteristics of softness, or, you know, maybe not having as much muscle strength, or being more on the submissive side. But there are also females that are stronger than men physically, are more dominant than men, are aggressive. Like, the characteristics are just generalization. It's almost hard to talk about this, because you have to first define what's feminine and what's masculine, and then people are going to disagree on that. So I think in the end, it's just like, well, what if we just kind of got rid of, I mean, we need words, I get it, but just go with me. What if we just kind of like got rid of all of the words and labels and boxes, and just said, like, I'm Kiley, and I have this interest and these characteristics, and this is what color my hair is. I'm just me. I don't have to say I am a transgender spectrum, I guess also non-binary, so maybe a bit gender fluid. And like, there's just all these words, and people get confused, rightfully so, because everyone's different. Words and labels, because they also can be useful. Yeah, it's helpful if you feel weird and wrong all of your life, to then feel like, oh, I'm not just like some complete, like, one of a kind, what's wrong with me? Oh, I'm transgender, or I'm gay. Like, sometimes the label can actually give you some comfort and some belonging and some identity and some language to use, just on our own position of various intersecting spectrums.
So I want to bring in the fact that the labeling that you're talking about, and I want to share that I had the honor of speaking to a younger person recently. And one of the reasons that we were talking in the first place is because the conversation at the elementary school level is a lot more gender neutral than maybe when I was growing up in 1976. I did the math and I was trying to figure out what year it was when I was his age at 11. It was like 1976. And I was trying to compare like where my thoughts were to today and the influences. Like we have the internet, it's the information age, and we're exposed to what's going on in Thailand or Russia, or like we didn't have any of that, when I was young. Like we only had whatever the TV could pipe in. And so it's just a different world. And I think to your point, the world is changing, and it's starting with the younger generations being, one, they're more fluid, now, like younger, outly fluid, talking about fluidity, but also accepting. There's a lot of acceptance, even from people who are not, identifying with the labels, but they're just like, whatever you want to be, that's fine. With me, I'm going to go kick my ball around, like it's a non-issue in some regards, which I love. I feel like that's how we're going to get there.
But we do need it. We do need what you said, like, thank goodness for the internet, because we need examples of different types of people. Because if we don't have words and we don't have examples, a lot of times we get confused and we don't know who we are, and it could feel like we almost don't exist. And so now that we can see all the different beautiful variations that people come in, you can see somebody like, for me, I don't know if you've heard of the actor Nico Tortorella, but he has a wonderful like celebrity memoir called Space Between, and he talks all about his gender and his sexuality. And he looks like, if you see him in his roles, he looks like a straight, cis, masculine, tatted, hairy, muscular, like typical, like straight dude. But then he also feels comfortable wearing a dress or female's clothing. And he's in a long-term relationship and now married to a girl who also identifies more non-binary. And he himself identifies as non-binary. And he's also attracted to men. And he's also in a polyamorous marriage where he's, with multiple people. So it's like, we need to see the options that are out there. Otherwise, we might not know how to move forward into our authenticity. And he helped me a lot, because once I saw him, I said, oh, this is the first time I'm actually seeing someone who I can identify with. Like, I can go hang out with him and feel like I fit in for the first time. And this was like, his book just came out a couple of years ago. And so I think there's still a lot of other people out there who don't have examples. And I think one of the groups that I'm aware of and that I interact with are men who are attracted to trans women, or vice versa, women who are attracted to trans men. That's just one group that I feel like is almost invisible. They don't have a word. Like, I'll talk to guys, and I've had multiple guys tell me, I don't know, like, what, like, does this mean I'm gay? Because they like trans women. They don't have a word. They think the closest thing is that they're gay, which is actually pretty far off. And they also don't know how many other people out there are like them, because they can't see them. I can see them because I talk to them, like, in the dating world. And so I can tell people that I talk to, hey, there's a lot of guys out there that are like you, that like trans women, or like feminine guys, or like dressing up themselves. There's a lot of quote unquote straight cis guys. That's how they identify, but they like wearing panties and bras and females' clothing and painting their nails. No one else knows it because it's all hidden. They don't know that their coworkers are feeling the same way, because so there's still all these people out there that just, we don't have the words and we don't have the examples. And so,
the biggest example that the regular everyday world knows is the Caitlyn Jenner, the Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner story about how for years he would dress like that secretively. And then when he finally decided he wanted to be his authentic self at, 60 years old, he completely turned into a woman by choice. But I think you and I were saying he still likes women, right? He's a trans woman who, she is a trans woman who actually likes women, but does that make her lesbian? I mean,
see, that's when we don't have the language.
Exactly. We don't have the terms.
Yeah.
But that's how
so
evolution happens. Evolution happens. And I'm sure we didn't have a word for banana at some point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the caveman or whatever used to not have words, now we have words, we have language, and there's like, how many languages are there? It's called evolution.
Actually, that's a really good point, because there are other languages that do have words, way more words than we might have in the English language. They may have 5 words for the 5 different genders that they recognize, whereas other languages have 3 words for the 3 genders that they tend to recognize. There are other cultures and other languages that actually recognize, like, oh, look, people aren't just male or
this
female.
Or that. This or that. Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, we're getting kind of long on our day. I'm sure I can have you back sometime for more exciting conversation. I want people to understand what you're doing now and where they can find you. And, are you for hire? I mean, tell us about yourself. What are you doing?
Yeah, I am a coach. I'm someone who works with other people one-on-one, or sometimes in small groups, to figure out and clarify what exactly is it that they want to achieve, or who do they want to be? Because sometimes we don't know, like we're talking about. It's just confusing and there aren't clear images or words or visions. So we figure out as best as we can in this moment, who do you want to be? How do you want to be? What do you want to achieve? And then we figure out what's getting in the way of that. And then what exactly can we do to get who you want to be? And that's a really vague, I basically just described what coaches do. But what I specifically want to help people do is I want to help people who feel like they have to hide parts of themselves in order to be accepted, people who feel like they're weird or they're not normal or something's wrong with them, people who feel like they have to quiet their voices. And I want to help them feel confident and comfortable being their uninhibited, true, authentic self. And by doing so, allow them to see that they can experience true, fulfilling connections in a way that they may not have been able to before. I sometimes call myself a connection coach because I think that increasing connection, compassion, less loneliness, less shame, anxiety, and actually just seeing each other for who we are and then absolutely each other. Yeah. World peace.
World peace, baby. Okay. So how can people find you? Do you have a website or something?
So if you want to find me, I would truly love to talk to you and meet you. You can go to KileyCoaching.com. My name's Kiley, Kiley, like Miley, but with a K. So KileyCoaching.com or Kiley.bear is my Instagram handle, BEAR, like the animal.
Okay. Is that your spirit animal?
It is my spirit animal. It does represent some good things and represents courage, but honestly, it was just one of those synchronicity things where in the period of a couple of years, 4 different friends started calling me Kiley Bear and they didn't know each other. So I was like, all right, I hear you, universe. Apparently that's my name.
That's funny. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time today. And I have this little thing that I do at the end of my podcast episodes where I like to be a mirror, a reflection of who you're being in the world and shine it back on you. So it's just a time to receive. You don't have to say anything or give it back to me. It's just a time to receive the love that I'm giving. And so I want to thank you and honor you and recognize that, see that you are being a light in the world, your courage, your bravery, just to even have the dialogue in order for people to be inquiring about their own confusion and or maybe just their sadness. Maybe they just feel alone. And the fact that you were willing to come have this conversation about masculine and feminine energy in a human being varies per each individual, footprint, basically. Like it's just an individual stamp for every single person. And the courage that it took for you to be willing to put yourself out there, it's just going to be amazing. And you're going to help so many people. And I know that's what you care about. I mean, in your career path, you were saying that you just want to help people and you love people and you want to connect with people. And it shows, the brightness that you were lit up when you were talking about the things that light you up. I bet you didn't look like that in the lab coat. Right?
Just me in the lab coat.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, you're beautiful and you have a beautiful spirit. And I just want you to keep shining that beautiful spirit all around the California coast and anywhere else you go. Just be that light. So thank you for being a guest
so much,
today.
Lydia.
You're welcome. And we'll have many more conversations, I'm sure. So call me anytime. And we'll go ahead and say goodbye to the guest now and wrap it up. So do you have anything else you want to say before we say goodbye?
Yeah, just goodbye, everyone listening. Thank you. And I just wanted to let you know that you're weird and that it's normal and that nothing's wrong with you.
And weird is cool, right?
Weird is cool and that I genuinely love you.
Yes, you do. You do genuinely love them and it shows. So I appreciate you. Have a good evening and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, you too.
Bye. We've reached the end of this episode. If you'd like to continue with this inspirational journey, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. If you are a self-proclaimed oneness junkie, get yourself a t-shirt and spread the message of oneness in your community. And finally, if you have a story to share or know someone that should be a guest on this podcast, contact us at onenessjunkie.com. See you next time. And remember, when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. Compassion starts with you and me.